How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to this episode of the GG Sports Podcast. Today for you guys, we have a special guest, Ali Siddiqui. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
How's it going? Yeah, I've been a Vikings fan since 1996. Been writing for the Viking. I've been blogging about the Vikings for 8 years now, but I've been with the Viking age for almost 3.5 years, and then Vikings territory for about 1.5 years. And yeah, I just always enjoy writing and talking Vikings.
Nice. That sounds like the dream job right there.
Yeah.
That sounds like something.
That sounds pretty sweet to me too.
Yeah, I would love that. All right, so let's just start off by getting into what a nutso day it's been with all the quarterback stuff. I mean, obviously the worst news of the day, Aaron Rodgers is staying in Green Bay. He tried to debunk the contract numbers. I mean, obviously the rumors out there is going to be a 4-year, $200 million deal. I don't know. I feel like the Packers are putting themselves in potentially in a Saints type situation down the road when that contract gets to the end of it. Obviously with them, they got a bunch of other stuff going on as well. I mean, they're retaining Devontae Adams is what they wanted. I think they're going to put the franchise tag on him. It sounds like, at least that's what I've heard. And yeah, so that's nutso. And then obviously after that, it couldn't have been an hour later, the Russell Wilson news comes out about him going to Denver for what they end up getting. So Denver gets Russell Wilson in a 4th, I believe.
Yep.
And then Seattle gets Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, I believe they said, Noah Fant, which I think is huge.
Yeah, right.
2
that's
firsts,
a bigger one.
2 2s, and a 5th, I believe.
I think what was it? Was it 2 seconds, or I'll have to pull it back up for you?
Yeah, I think it was 2 firsts and 2 seconds.
Yeah, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and then maybe there was like a 5th. I think there was like a 5th or like a later round pick in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Tom Pelissero's tweet said you have multiple 1st-round picks plus additional picks, and then I think he discussed it more later too. I believe it was 2 second-rounders.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, who do you guys think won that trade?
Man, I mean, Russell Wilson hasn't been playing as well, I guess, in the last couple of years. I mean, who knows? There's obviously some kind of, stuff going on in the background there, and the offensive line problems, stuff like that. But still, I mean, he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, 9 Pro Bowls. It's hard to find those kinds of quarterbacks anywhere. And obviously the easy argument is Matthew Stafford having a similar deal last year and then winning a Super Bowl. So I got to say, I think it works for both of them. Having to get rid of someone like Wilson and then getting that much stock out of it, you got to be not too sad with that overall, especially if you're looking towards like a rebuild. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. So I think in the short run, it helps Denver more. I mean, I know Wilson, he's kind of declining, but he's still pretty good. But in the long run, this will help Seattle. And yeah, so I'm looking at this now. They so like you said, Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris. So yeah, 2 1st-round picks, 2 2nd-round picks, and then and a 5th rounder, and then they gave up a 4th rounder. But yeah, so I mean, lots of draft capital. They save cap space, and and they got a pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I always thought Russell was going to be there till he retires. He did a lot for them, but again, things changed too, and they didn't have a good year, so I guess it's not too surprising. And and Denver, since they last had Manning in 2015, they haven't been able to find a quarterback. So
I feel like that's what Denver is just going to do from now on. Get that vet quarterback, win a Super Bowl, suck for 7 to 10 years, rinse, repeat. So
it's like, well, since they had Elway, who now runs the team, I mean, they haven't had much luck, and I know a lot of people love Tebow. I know Elway was like, nah, which is understandable. I mean, I was never very high on Tebow either.
Right. Yeah, they go get those franchise quarterbacks like the Peyton Manning and Russell Wilson now, but yeah, their quarterback drafting has been pretty brutal. Yeah. I mean, Locke. Who's right before Locke?
Osweiler.
not
Osweiler,
Osweiler. That was one
Paxton
too. But
Lynch.
the Paxton Lynch.
Who's now,
yeah.
I believe he's in the USFL now. So
Yeah,
still
exactly.
playing?
And then Tebow, and yeah, so
Yeah.
so I mean, hey, for them that works. I mean, they won a Super Bowl when they got Peyton Manning,
Yeah.
and so I mean, who knows? But
And
they still got to get through us.
Something tells me that because I believe, I mean, I would assume that they're getting Seattle's first round pick or Denver's first round pick this year, right? Seattle would be. So I'm curious if that pick is going to translate into a Malik Willis or what have you this year in the first round. I think it very well could happen. I think especially if Pete Carroll stays there and decides that he wants to kind of keep the same offense in place, I think you can see some similarities between the two. You know, they both got pretty big arms. They both move around a lot. So I could see that being a very solid fit. So interesting stuff, man. And that just, I don't know. I mean, and obviously this is, we talk Vikings here. So how do you guys think this news affects the front office and their Kirk Cousins situation here? Ali, let's start with you on this one. What do you think?
You know, honestly, given with Rodgers back, I mean, Packers should once again be the favorites in the North. I think I don't know what Kawasi is thinking right now. If he thinks, has always felt, you know, they should either rebuild or retool. But I think given that Rodgers is back, I think if he already was leaning toward rebuild, I think he does so even more now. And also, I mean, if Spielman was still here, I think most likely he would have brought back Cousins for sure and would have tried to keep going. But I think since Kawasi's a new guy, I mean, I think it's more likely that he's going to rebuild. I mean, more likely than Rick would have. But yeah. And you know, there's you know, and personally, you know, like I'm actually a fan of Cousins. I like him, but you know, I mean, I think they should move on. I mean, I don't see them being Super Bowl contenders this year. They can get good stuff in return for Cousins, maybe not something huge, but they can get a decent amount in return. And then, you know, and he's going to be 34, so he's not that old, but he's not that young. I think realistically, he has 2 or 3 good years left in him. So, and given that I don't think they're going to be contenders next year, I feel like, you know what, let's, you know, rebuild, you know, get some cap space, get some picks, and hopefully they'll hit on a rookie QB, even though I know the class isn't supposed to be very good, but you never know.
Exactly.
Right.
And I just think, you know, at some point, if you do keep Cousins or if you don't, the front office does need to find their guy, draft, and then develop. It's got to happen sooner rather than later.
Right.
And it doesn't matter which direction you go with Kirk. If you keep him, you definitely need to. And if you move on, then, you know, you give yourself maybe a bridge quarterback this year. And then, you know, if you fall in love with a guy, or if a guy drops you that you like and you think you could develop, take him this year. Otherwise, look in the future, maybe, you know, next year or the year after. But, you know, you got to find the guy eventually to move forward with. So.
Yeah, and I want to point out, like what Ali said, which actually is pretty interesting, is that, you know, without Aaron Rodgers being on the Packers, it seems like we would have been the favorite, especially with Kirk Cousins. And now that they have the Packers, like you said, then they're going to be the favorite, and we're most like, it doesn't seem as likely to keep Kirk Cousins now because we don't feel like we have the pieces to become like the automatic top team in our division.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point. But yeah, I agree too, as I think it's time. I mean, I've said this before on this podcast a bunch of times, but I think it's time to move on and trade. And even if we're not doing a full rebuild, I just think Kirk Cousins personally hasn't lived up to that contract. And, you know, that's going to hurt. And we're coming in this offseason. We want, you know, we're coming in good free agents for guards, and actually as well as cornerbacks. And we might not have the cap space, especially with Daniel Hunter, if we want to, you know, extend him and everything, that we're going to be hurting in those areas, I think, by keeping Kirk Cousins potentially. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think on all that stuff with how that cap situation would work with Kirk Cousins being on here, as far as like the rest of our, because I just don't know if we hold Kirk Cousins, if I mean, there won't be if we're going to stay competitive. I'm not 100% convinced that keeping Kirk Cousins keeps us competitive compared to getting rid of him, and then for trading, spending some of that money on free agents. And then even if you got a guy like Winston or something like that to come in, I'm not convinced that Kirk Cousins is a better option for us to have a better team than having a better supporting cast, and then also having a guy like Winston or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about any of this. You know, I've kind of gotten to the point where I am so neutral on the Kirk Cousins thing. If we keep him, I understand it.
Yeah.
If we trade him, I understand it. There is zero chance we'll see him back at this cap number this year. I do think if you keep him, an extension will happen, whether it be a small one, maybe add some void years to the end. I don't know what they'll do, but I don't see a situation in which you can pay him that full $45 million this year. You know, I don't know. It's and then obviously as we all know, the news came out that, you know, he's not willing to take a hometown discount, as the way they put it. And obviously, in my mind, that's leaked by the team, most likely trying to make it seem like he's not really negotiating with them. So I don't know what to think about any of this. I can't wait till something's done, just so we know. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting, and obviously it's been the talking point since midway through the season, you know. So
I think this is the best chance for a team to come in and give us the most we'd want for something like for Kirk Cousins, especially with Wilson already figured out with Broncos, and then Aaron Rodgers staying with the Packers, because we still got, well, we already know Carolina reached out, or at least that's what they say or whatever. And then, you know, you still got Tampa Bay. You still have New Orleans. So you still have these teams that are, you know, a solid quarterback away from being good, especially Tampa Bay. You know, they're just in the playoffs. They just won a Super Bowl. So, I mean, I think if there's any year to trade him, I think this is going to be the year. And I think with that happening with Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next coming weeks, because, you know, everybody's pushing for these contracts extensions, stuff like that. It's time to figure that stuff out. You know, we're at that spot, and it's kind of nice that Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are already off the table. So it kind of gives us some time to figure out the contract, and then even, you know, look into some trades a little bit. But we'll see. I think overall, and I think we'll end up having them next year. But
well, Ali, let me ask you, what do you think a Kirk Cousins trade would look like? Like, what compensation do you think the Vikings could get back?
I think they could very possibly get a first round pick. I don't think it's going to be like Wilson or Stafford, where they'll get they'll get 2 or 3. But, you know, I think they could get one. Perhaps can get a player in return. But, you know, yeah, it just, if they're not going to extend, like, but yeah, and even if they do decide, okay, we want him, it's not going to make sense if they keep him for 1 year and then let him go, because not only is the cap number too high, but, you know, just like I said, I don't think this team is going far anyway, so it's going to be pointless to just have him here for 1 year and then lose him for nothing. You know, it's much better to get something in return. His value is higher now than I think it ever will be down the road. So I think, you know, just get some picks, perhaps a player, and then, well, he's due $45 million, but then only $10 million is dead cap, so they get $35 million in cap space right there too. And yeah, so like I would move him. I would take a chance on a QB in the first round, and then I would sign either Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota just for a year or two, you know, while the rookie learns. Yeah, and yeah, like people are saying, yeah, I know this isn't considered as a deep class, quote unquote, but, you know, like people thought the 2017 class wasn't going to be very good. You know, let's see, Mahomes is already very good, and I know, well, Watson, well, I know he has issues, but when he was playing, obviously he was great.
The only failure there was Mr. Trubisky. Nice job, Chicago. What do you do?
Yeah, they traded up a spot to get him too, and he's going to be there anyways.
That was nutty. But yeah, I mean, right now, if you look at it, I mean, pending Deshaun Watson's, I know they said Friday might be a big day for him. I know he'll be tried for criminal charges on Friday, or the grand jury is discussing it. So if things clear with him, obviously I think he's number one on the trade market. But as of right now, I think Kirk Cousins is number one quarterback on the trade market right now. So
exactly.
If there's teams that are desperate enough to make a move,
and there should be teams out there that need that quarterback, you know.
I mean, Carolina's in a rough spot, and they could very well call. Washington's going hard for quarterbacks. They called every team in the league, so options.
And then the Colts, you know, they're going to get rid of Wentz, and I mean, according to over the cap, they have $42 million of cap space. You know, so I mean, and once they release Wentz, they'll save some too. So I mean,
and that offensive line is stacked there. Kirk could have all the time in the world to make the decisions.
Right.
maybe they need. I mean, they got Pittman and they got the T.Y. Hilton for whatever he's worth, as of right now. But you'll get another receiver to put on that team with Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, and that the defense has some pieces too.
Yeah, that would be a really good team, I think. And there's a lot of good wide receivers in this draft. Just like the last couple drafts have been insane for wide receivers. So wide receivers are just coming out everywhere. It's crazy, but luckily we got the best one, Justin Jefferson.
But obviously these decisions need to be made by somebody. So let's backtrack a little bit here. Ali, what were your opinions on the hires in Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, respectively? What did you think about those? What were you thinking during the process?
I mean, only time will tell, but like I'm excited. I think I mean, Spielman and Zimmer, I mean, they did some good things, but especially with how the last 2 years went, it was clearly time to move on. I mean, I always liked them both, but it was time to move on. And just it's nice that they have some new blood. And O'Connell, I mean, I know he's never been a head coach, but I like that he comes from Sean McVay's coaching tree. So far, his coaching tree has worked out well. He comes from a winning organization. He's the kind of guy I wanted. I wanted them to get a young offensive mind. And like you're talking about, they need a quarterback eventually of the future. And I mean, he used to also play quarterback. I know he was a bench guy, but still he knows the position well. He knows offense.
And he played in New England with, coached by Belichick and played with Brady. So that's got to mean something. You learn a little bit there.
Yeah. It's funny, actually 2008. He was actually Moss's teammate, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah. And then, Kwesi, I know, Kwesi, I'm excited about him too. I mean, I know he's never been a GM, but he has a lot of experience too. And I'm just in general, I'm just interested to see how these guys are going to work out. In the end, I think we can agree change was needed. And then we don't know, even though we don't know if they're going to be good or not. I'm very excited to find out.
Yeah, I think one of the things I really liked about Kwesi, I'll start there, is that he was at a Timberwolves game a couple weeks back, and he's there. The camera's going to be on you. Rick Spielman would have been wearing the suit and everything there. He had a t-shirt and a stocking cap on. And I look at that. I'm like, and then he's doing some he did he talked with Gabe. I don't remember what the guy's name is.
Gabe Henderson.
Gabe Henderson. Yeah. And, again, Spielman to that, they just had to sit down, those two talking. He'd had the suit on, but he's sitting there in a Viking sweatsuit and a baseball, or like the flat brim baseball cap. I just think it's cool. It's just, he's bringing that younger attitude to a team that kind of needs it. It's a new age with these younger players. And I just, and Kevin O'Connell, he's a younger guy too. And he understands how these younger players think. I just think it's a breath of fresh air on this team. It doesn't need to be super. I mean, obviously it's official. When he does his press conferences, they're both in their suits, but I just think that they're bringing a new laid back approach to this team. And obviously, Eric Kendricks talked about the last regime and how they led. I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air in the building. And I think it's going to do wonders just for this team. Yeah, like Ali said, maybe not this upcoming year, but down the road, I think it's going to be a big thumbs up.
I really enjoy. It's just the culture change, what they're trying to push with the culture, with the leadership. I really like that. And I mean, to the point where, you have a shot at Harbaugh and you pick your vision of the culture in the future over picking someone who's already successful. That shows a lot. And I think they, like what you said with the stocking thing, I think, it kind of creates like involvement and like equality from top to bottom. And you're not feeling, maybe I'm reaching on this, but like there's not like a superiority thing from like the guys on top, like I'm the GM, stuff like that. Like you're kind of, that's, they're kind of like intertwining more with the players from top to bottom, like they're becoming a whole team as a whole, instead of, we already know Mike Zimmer kind of wasn't super close with the players, was kind of, on his own thing. And in the end with Spielman and stuff like that, like we figured out like how separated our organization was from each other actually. And you kind of get this vibe, like you're trying to create like almost like a family vibe, I guess. Yeah. So I really like that idea. And I think that's what excites me the most about this change, because I think that style of leadership, I think helps a lot. And you'll see it in businesses and stuff like that. And it seems like those are the businesses that end up being the most successful, are the ones that kind of roll with that kind of leadership. But
I'm super excited to see where it goes. I think it was a good move. Like we all basically agreed on, change was needed there for sure. So
and then plus we got there's some hype around Kwesi at the combine and stuff like that. Like a lot of other analysts and stuff like that are loving on him, and they see his potential and just the way he holds himself And that's super exciting too, because you can see this hype. It's nice when some other people are like, wow, he's going to be a special GM or he's going to be a special head coach, because then it makes you feel better as a Viking fan. But
yeah. And obviously a lot of decisions to be made with this team, much more than just Kirk Cousins. Let's talk about some of the other contracts we got on the roster here. And some of those, I mean, Jamie, I know you and I did a video a couple weeks back kind of looking at some of those players. Ali, what would be your, like, non-Kirk Cousins, what would be your first move with some of these contracts? Like, let's start with a guy like Danielle Hunter. What would you like to see happen there?
Yeah, so I mean, he's due $26.12 million. I mean, they need to. Oh yeah, if they're going to keep him, they're definitely not going to do that. I mean, they'll. I mean, right. I think they should, and I think they'll move that number down, which will give them some. This will clear plenty of cap space. Like, even let's say they move him down to 15 million, even that could work. I don't think they'll trade him. I mean, even if they decide to rebuild, he's only 27. He's still relatively young. I mean, I know the injuries the last 2 years are a concern, but still, he's 27. I mean, when he's out there, he's a monster. So.
We need him. We missed him when he got hurt both years.
Oh, and then also Adam Thielen. I think he'll be back. He's due 16.94 million, but I think they'll bring his cap number down. Even I mean, even if they end up rebuilding, I mean, I think they'll still keep him. I mean, you never know, but I think they'll still keep him. I'd like to see. And then also it's interesting to see what they'll do with, and then after that, Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Smith just got extended, but I wonder if they'll try to bring his cap number down. Both Smith and Kendricks are going to get a little over 13 million. I could see them perhaps working something out with that. Michael Pierce, I think he's gone.
Yeah, we agree.
Yep, he's due 10.5 million. They save 6.5 million. But so yeah, I think he'll be gone. I know he was hurt a lot last year. So
yeah, I thought when they played, I thought you heard a lot more about Delvin Tomlinson than you did about him. So if I got to pick one, I would go with Delvin Tomlinson.
Yeah. I mean, Tomlinson wasn't quite as good as I thought, but he was still good overall. And I would if I had to choose the two, I would definitely choose Tomlinson over him.
He's cheaper for sure too. I mean, and then you got the Akeem Hicks rumors out there too. That I mean, not rumors, but it was one guy who was trying to put free agents to teams. I'll call it a rumor, though.
Rumor.
That would be interesting.
Yes.
I think they said he's 32 years old. He's had some injuries in the past. I know he was injured this last season a little bit, but just bringing the guy that made our lives miserable twice a year into the fold would be pretty sick.
And I remember there was a rumor about Zadarius Smith, because it was right after the Vikings hired Mike Smith, who was with the Packers as their linebackers coach. Like he tweet a eyeball emoji, or so people started saying, "Oh, maybe he'll be."
That'd be sick.
People tweet an emoji, and all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh, what does this mean?" And we're trying to break it down and stuff. But I mean, especially if we move to kind of like that, a base 3-4 defense, a guy like Zadarius Smith would be amazing in that. Pair him with Kendricks and Danielle Hunter if we can keep him. And
it's funny if you look on Twitter right now, anybody that's sending eyes now, and you look under the comments, it's all everyone's like Kirk Cousins trade. Like, yeah,
it was Peter Schrager. I saw.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone's just Kirk Cousins. So you can just see, the momentum's going past Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, and now it's like, what's going to happen to Kirk Cousins next?
How much do you think all of this is just hurting Rodgers, that he had the big news of the day and all of a sudden now he's just on the back burner right away? I don't think he likes it very much.
Well, that's what that was kind of funny too, though, is Denver, Aaron Rodgers gets signed to his extension, and an hour later it's like, all right, plan B and go get Russell Wilson.
Right,
it just seems so obvious.
They had to have had a couple deals like agreed upon in the works before this, just because that it did come out fast. So obviously there was talks going on, and maybe Denver might have even had the clue in that, hey, they're sticking with Rodgers, let's move on to plan B with Russell Wilson. So yeah, I don't know. Interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff. I would like to see Danielle Hunter and Adam Thielen both stay. I think Adam Thielen's one of those guys that you might be able to talk him to. I mean, obviously you don't want to insult the guy, but I think he'd be one of those guys that would take a lot less just to stay here. I mean, hometown, homegrown guy, hometown team. I mean, I get it. He wants to win, but he might think that way. He think, hey, with a lesser cap number, I'll give them more money that they can go spend on guys to help us win. So, yeah, I'd like to see those two stay. Kendricks, I obviously think is going to stay. Harrison Smith is going to stay. Yeah, and I just agree that Michael Pierce probably is odd man out in that.
You think Barr's going to be gone? Unless he can get a... I do too. There's this part of me that feels like Mike Zimmer just didn't use him correctly. And I feel like he's going to be that guy that goes to another team and then all of a sudden he just gets 10 sacks or something.
Yeah.
Well, I think now he's getting old. He's had a lot of injuries, but I've always felt he would have been very good in a 3-4 defense. I mean, for the most part, he's been good in his career, but being in a 3-4, I think he would have been even better. I mean,
I know
it suits his strengths.
Yeah, that's why it makes me wonder, like, what if, because I don't know what he'd cost to bring back, but switching to a 3-4, I wonder if, that would maybe change our idea on keeping him or not, or even because, there's not tons of linebackers coming into this free agents. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't mind drafting a linebacker kind of earlier than later, but
yeah,
because we're going to need it if we switch to a 3-4, kind of on as many linebackers we got, because we already have, we definitely have some young guys in Surratt and Troy Dye and stuff like that. So they could come in and hopefully pick up the pieces there. But
and when Blake Lynch played, he
did
looked
pretty
good
well
at times.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully we already have it on our roster, because we've put a lot of like third, fourth round capital in our linebackers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, pieces are there. I'm really curious to see what this defense will look like under Donatel. I think that was a really good hire, especially for a younger head coach and Kevin O'Connell. Who I mean, he's going to be an offensive guy, and I do think he'll be one of those guys that will learn how to coach the entire team. But right away, being able to outsource your defense to a guy with experience, who coached with one of the probably top defensive minds in the NFL with Vic Fangio, I think it'll do wonders for that defense, and just a change up will be really cool to see how that happens there. So yeah. When it comes to other free agents, like outside of the Vikings, Ali, who is your top guy? Who would you like to see come here?
I mean, I don't expect him to be too active in free agency. We'll see what happens with Kirk. I mean, Brandon Scherf would be very nice, but I mean, if Kirk is back, that's going to be very difficult to do. And even if they do get rid of Kirk, I mean, are they going to spend a lot on a guy who he's in his 30s? Scherf, is he 28 to?
He might be early 30, like 30, 31. You can do a little check, but yeah, that would be obviously, because our offensive line's finally kind of coming together, because we've figured out our tackle spots, I feel like, with Darrisaw and obviously O'Neal, but it's that. And then I feel like Cleveland definitely, he started picking it up at the end of the year, and I think he can be that guy. Obviously that right guard, Udo didn't really play as good as we were hoping. He had all the hype before the season, and then we got to figure something out with our center spot. That's another big one. But and we got Wyatt Davis though. I didn't want to bring that up.
If you bring in a Brandon Scherf type, if it were to happen, would you be able to bump a guy like Wyatt Davis to center? I know he experimented there last offseason or preseason or in the training camp and stuff.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you think he'd make a good center? I guess I don't know if it. I don't know how it translates center, but
yeah, I mean, I know they announced their talk later that the reason he didn't get active is because he had weight issues. But but yeah, I mean, I'm hopefully he gets in shape, and I'm excited to see what he can do. I mean, a lot of fans, including myself, were very happy with that pick. He looked pretty good, and then but yeah, I say some guys, assuming they're not too active in free agencies, like I think they'll definitely go after a corner. Especially even if Peterson is back. I mean, some of the names, Bryce Callahan, Kyle Fuller, they were in Denver last year with Donatel. I know Fuller struggled last year. Callahan had injuries, but I wouldn't be shocked if they go after him. And then also there's Rasul Douglas from the Packers. He knows the division. And then also if they go after a linebacker, I think Jacob Martin with the Texans, he played in a 3-4 defense, and Vikings are going to run that. So that'd be another option too.
Bring in Devondre Campbell maybe from Green Bay. Why not?
Right.
It'd be an interesting one.
I'm sure Mike Smith would be fine with that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. I did want to just say that Brandon Scherf is 30 years old.
Yeah, I just saw that too. He'll be 31 in December. I just checked.
Okay. So that, he still got some time. I mean, he's an offensive lineman.
Right. So I know that there was the rumor. Was the rumor that he was would be interested in coming here first off, and then And also, him and Kirk, they played together a little bit. They know each other. So hey, maybe that'd be a way. Hey, Kirk, we'll go get you. If you take a little less money, we'll go get your guy for you.
Right. I do want to say it is funny what all these coaches and stuff coming from Washington, and then Washington just can't find their own right pieces, but they're creating like these studs for coaches that are going on and being successful everywhere else.
Yeah. So let's end this off by talking a little draft. So obviously the combine just happened. A lot of big names had some really solid workouts. What was that one guy? He weighed 300 and I don't remember exactly how many pounds they said, but he ran like a 4.7, 840 or something like that.
Yeah, the defensive tackle. Was it Wyatt or was that his teammate?
But all I know is he was a big dude, and that's fast for a big defensive lineman like that. And then obviously, we saw some of like the wide receiver 40 times were just nutty. So who are your guys' draft crushes? Top guy. If you could have one guy at 12, who would it be? Ali, let's start with you on this one.
If he's available, well, I guess he likely won't be, but Malik Willis, he's a quarterback, and I think they need, like I said, I mean, regardless of whether it happens, what happens with Kirk, they're going to need a long-term guy. But, especially if they decide to move on with Kirk, I think you take a QB in the first, let him sit for a year or two, and then just keep your fingers crossed. Hope he pans. Hopefully he's not going to be another Ponder or Jackson.
Right. I mean, you got to take your shots, like.
Yeah.
Those kind of quarterbacks don't just grow on trees. You kind of have to take a chance at quarterback. I mean, it's so important to like winning a Super Bowl or anything like that. So I agree. I mean, you might be a little afraid to take that chance at a quarterback that early this year in particular, but I mean, you got to do it. Look at most of the teams in the last like 10 years have a franchise quarterback, a guy like Mahomes, Tom Brady, not Aaron Rodgers. It's been more than 10 years since he's won a Super Bowl, so not him. But you know what I'm saying? There's one outlier years where a team wins with their defense and there's not a good quarterback there. But so I agree. I think I would be totally cool if we took a shot on a quarterback. It's always super exciting. We haven't had the best luck.
Like the only issue with that, though, I mean, and I get it. The rumor is there's no surefire starter in this class, but it's just the quarterback pick in the first round is such a pick that can define a GM's career. If you miss on it, it's a bad look drafting a quarterback in the first round and having it not work out. So I think that's why in a class like this, there might be a team that's afraid of doing it. But like you said, someone's got to do it. And you never know. And that's the thing. Right. And that's the thing about the draft. Look at you can have a top flight guy who just doesn't work out. Or a guy like Russell Wilson, as we talked about him. He was a guy who was just drafted in the third round. Like, whatever. The Seahawks just signed Matt Flynn to a massive contract. He was going to be their starter, and Russell Wilson wins the job. So you never know what you're going to get. So, I would like to see us get him again. As Ali mentioned, I don't think he's going to be there. And I don't even know if a guy like Sauce Gardner is going to be there now after his combine workouts. So I don't know.
That's what I was going to say is outside for me, I would probably, if I was going to pick a player, it'd be between Sauce Gardner or Stingley.
Yeah.
I think we should go cornerback. I like the idea of the quarterback, especially if we trade Kirk Cousins. Then we kind of need to, but yeah, I don't really know what to expect this year. Like I know Malik Willis is definitely getting the hype.
Kenny Pickett, he's got
Kenny
baby
Pickett,
hands,
he's
so
going
down. He might drop a little bit now.
Right. But who knows
if had pretty solid workouts there. So he's going to be a second round guy out of Cincinnati. But if he's there in the second round and you got a shot at him and you like him,
although isn't Kenny Pickett? He's 24, right? Which for a rookie is old.
Right. So he is older. So all this stuff, everybody didn't care. Of course, no one really cared before the combine. But now all of a sudden, because he was like the consensus number one for all through the offseason. And then now his hand thing comes out, and then they go, oh, he's old too. He's this. They're going to pick at him.
And you know what happened the last time we drafted a 2-glove quarterback? His knee burst open on him. So I don't know. I mean, no correlation, but.
And I think with Spielman, I think besides the fact he felt Cousins could be the final piece of the puzzle, I think he was also just didn't want to go through drafting a quarterback. I mean, even though he didn't become the GM until 2012, but he's been out the organization. He had been here since 2006, so
Yeah.
he was there when he was there when they took Ponder, and then he came a little after they drafted Jackson. That was the Fran Foley experiment, but you know, he saw that. And then obviously Teddy, I thought he could have been a good long-term guy. I don't think he would have been elite. I wasn't as high on him as many were, but I think he could have been a decent or good, not elite QB. Been here for a while, but yeah, I think just that was part of the reason. I think that's part of the reason why Spielman signed Cousins. He was also worried that, you know, I've already seen our QBs not work out, or for whatever the reasons, you know, I think he just didn't want to. Although if he probably knew Lamar Jackson was going to be available,
Right.
I mean, he probably would have taken a chance on him.
I know that would be crazy because, you know, because during that offseason and the whole thing was like Teddy Bridgewater, Case Keenum, or do we go get Kirk? And then we ended up getting Kirk. And part of you thinks if we would have went the other, either Teddy or Keenum, would we have ended up with Lamar Jackson? Like, that's another thing about getting Kirk Cousins is it pretty much took us out of any market to get any quarterback anytime soon. Obviously we ended up getting Mund last year in the 3rd round, but it took us forever.
Yeah, and time will tell too with him, but yeah, so far I'm not sold on Mond.
Yeah. I know he got in there in the preseason. His last game was decent, but other than that, you know, it is what it is. And you didn't see him much in the regular season, of course, but
except for one pass or one play.
Yeah, almost got intercepted.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I like his athletic ability and stuff. And that's one thing like I want to see different from our quarterback position is I want to see more athleticism, because we always have those guys that just stand in the pocket and then get hit. I don't know that now with the NFL, you're seeing all these guys roll out and, you know, avoiding pressure. We saw like everybody, Mahomes, Burrow, Josh Allen. And then I get kind of jealous because, you know, we were Sam Bradford to, you know, Kirk Cousins. Actually, Keenum wasn't too bad at it, but Teddy Bridgewater could do it a little bit, guys.
Yeah.
But I kind of like to see that in the future.
Yeah, and Keenum wasn't a very good passer. I mean, he knew how to escape pressure, but although I think a lot of times, I mean, he got bailed out by his receivers. Remember, there's so many times I remember he underthrew his receiver. Diggs and Thielen had to run back a bunch of times because he had to catch his underthrown pass.
Right. Well, there's a reason why they were top of the league in contested catches. Like that's a big contributor to that.
Right.
Hey, maybe trade Kirk, trade for Case Keenum, bring him back in for a year or two, see how that goes.
Well, actually, Teddy is available now that he's going to be available now that the Broncos just got Wilson.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm like I like Kirk Cousins, and I think he's just an above average quarterback, but getting paid like you're a guy that can bring a team, I don't know, team to super. I think he's more of a quarterback that needs everything to be good around him to succeed to that level of winning a championship. And we're not paying him that way. And we're using money that we could use in other positions when I don't know. Like I said earlier, if we upgraded other positions and we brought a guy in like Winston Mariota or Teddy, could they bring our team further than Kirk Cousins can right now with the situation we are? And we're not upgrading our guard position because we can't afford it, or our cornerback position because we can't afford it. I'm not sold that can't happen. I don't, you know, we've had Kirk Cousins. How many years has it been now? 4
years.
4 years. And he has one playoff win. We've been to playoffs once.
Yeah.
We can say that it's, you know, the coaches, there's a million other reasons why. Yes. But the year before we got him, Case Keenum brought us to the NFC Championship. So I don't know. You pay a quarterback like that, fully guaranteed, and you only have one playoff. I know it's not only on the quarterback. There's other reasons, but we have a lot of talent. So I just don't think, you know, if people want to say like Kirk Cousins isn't like a winner or he gets under pressure, and I could definitely say this year, especially in the beginning of the year, there's a lot of 2-minute, you know, the last 2 minutes of the game or whatever that he succeeded very well on. And I mean, we were super pumped up. It was crazy. And the prime time thing, I don't think that's like a big thing anymore, whatever. But the big thing for us, and we looked into his stats earlier in the year, was that, you know, as soon as, I think it was right after we beat the Packers, it was kind of like we got that hype again, like we can try to make it to the playoffs, and all his stats started coming down to earth a little bit. And he had some games where he's just, you know, missing a lot of throws and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, I just feel like really good franchise quarterbacks, when you get in those situations where you need to win games to make it into playoffs or whatever, that's kind of where they get better. And with Kirk Cousins, it seems like when he's in that situation, he's not putting the team on his back or being better. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, he had his best year this year, and he was more clutch this year than usual. But yes, if you look at his career overall, too, that's one of the things that prevents him from being elite, is that he doesn't always play his best in the biggest games and the biggest moments. So, I mean, and with how things have gone, with the Vikings have missing the playoffs the last 3 or 4 years, yes, I think he does usually get more blame than he should. I do think some of it is on him. I mean, his contract hasn't made things impossible. It has made things tougher. And yes, like I said, it's usually, I know, even though he was at his best this year, but yeah, if you look at his overall career, for the most part, like I said, it's usually in the biggest games and moments, he's usually not at his best.
Right. Yeah, I agree. See, I mean, and then the biggest thing, if you are going to extend him, my last thought on Kirk here is, you look at a quarterback like Derek Carr, who I think is an inferior quarterback, I think, to Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk is a better quarterback than Derek Carr. I think the thing that really drives Derek Carr, though, and I wish Kirk had this, is the attitude. I wish Kirk had Derek Carr's attitude, because Derek Carr is a phenomenal leader of men, of a football team. You know, quarterback skills, he's good. Obviously, we've seen it. He makes the throws. He has a lot of big plays, but I just wish Kirk had that attitude, you know, like the team leader winning attitude like that. And I think that'd make Kirk a much better quarterback, and maybe better in those clutch situations as well. Yeah. But if you are going to extend Kirk, you got to do it before Derek Carr. If Derek Carr gets $40 million, Kirk Cousins is going to deserve, you know, if that resets the market, Kirk Cousins is going to be, he deserves more than.
And it's going to be fully guaranteed. On top of that, probably.
But, yeah. Any other thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I mean, just not much, you know. But yeah, this next week, it will be.
Yeah, it's gonna get
very interesting, and we'll see what. And we'll see what Kawasi does. Let's see how he gets things started.
I'm excited. It's going to be interesting going into this draft, because you got the Whelan Spielman stuff isn't happening more. So it's like a different vibe, because automatically when you have Spielman, you're just like, we're going to trade, or something's going to happen. We're going to end up with 20 picks at the end of the draft. And it's just going to be weird now with the new GM, and see how he handles things. And I don't know, I'm excited for that. It's always exciting having everything new, even though you don't know for sure if it's going to work well, but I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah, definitely. All right, before we sign off here, Ali, why don't you let the fans know where to find your stuff one more time before we sign off?
Okay, man. I write for the Viking Age and Vikings Territory. My Twitter handle is ASIDDIQUI15.
All right,
perfect.
All right.
Appreciate so much for being on here, dude. You'll have to come on again. Yeah, we got excited season. I mean, shoot, maybe even right before the season starts or anything like that, because man, there's going to be a lot of hype coming on this year. Yeah. I'm excited.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We'll do our little sign off here. If you want to check out some of our other videos, they'll be right up there. Do not forget to subscribe to GG Sports Podcast. Help us out a lot. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Leave your thoughts down in the comments on all of our thoughts. And we will see you guys in the next episode of the GG Sports Podcast.
SKOL Vikes.